He got taken out by a kangaroo once when he was running down the street.
Yeah.
So his name's Skippy.
18 beers. I never drank so much in 24 hours. I missed the trail. You did the same trail 17 times and then you missed the trail. That means you are really drunk.
My girl's a vegetable. She lives in the hospital. I do most anything to keep her alive.
Okay, so here I have Laurie and Dennis, and I really think you guys have so many good stories because you're hashers and sailors and you have a history of engineering and flying and military and all those things, and also you know America very well, but you also know outside of America.
Yes, we do.
Very well, and I like to share some of their experience, and that can inspire people too, you know, like to sometimes to try something that we talk about or to just generally get a little more outside.
Yeah.
Right? So let's start talking about history a little bit, you know, like ancient history. So where did you start from your birth?
Well, yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts in the 50s, and I lived just outside of Boston in Quincy till I got till about third grade. Third grade, we moved to a little town called Shrewsbury, just outside of Worcester.
I live in that neighborhood. I live in Weymouth.
Oh.
Yeah, they're still talking about you there. I live in Weymouth. Then I moved to across the border in New Hampshire, and then much later, some 5-6 years later, I moved to Newton. You know, so just west of the city. So yeah, I know Massachusetts, recent Massachusetts quite well. Yeah. So you grew up there.
Yes, and although the sailing was very good, and I was a member of the local sailing club, which came at the high cost of $1 per year to be a member.
Wow.
The community sailing club basically changed my life.
Was it Boston? No, that wasn't South Shore, right?
No.
So, or where was it more North Shore? Because I see a lot of more marinas there, right?
Yeah, there was a community sailing club of Boston on the Charles River, and there was also a community sailing club of Worcester, which was on the border between Shrewsbury and Worcester on Lake Quinsigamon, which was about a 7-mile lake, and that's where I learned how to sail. As a matter of fact, I got my U.S. sailing instructor rating when I was 12 years old there, and one of my students was Krakow, who is now living and hashing in Key West with us.
So they reconnected after 50 years.
Yeah, in 1964, we parted our ways when I graduated from high school in 67 and went into the Air Force. And then never got in touch with each other again till about, 4 years ago?
Probably about that.
About 4 years ago, when all at once I got an email from her that she just happened to have access to from some of her teacher friends, because we had just had our 40th or 50th class reunion, high school class reunion. And she was able to get my email address and just threw an email out in the dark, and so we reconnected. And her dad had just passed away, so I talked her into coming down to Key West just for Fantasy Fest. She came down, fell in love with the place, and said, "I'm staying."
She's still
here.
there.
Yeah. When I moved to Florida in 1998, the first day. The first place I went to was Key West. I landed in Miami, rented a car, went straight to Key West because I read so much about it. And just recently, just like a week before that, I saw a movie that the story went on in the Florida Keys. It was some movie with Jack Nicholson, and I do that a lot. I watch movies and then I go visit the city portrayed in the movies, even fiction. That doesn't matter, because you see a little bit of it, right?
Yeah.
Or when I know that I have to go to a certain place, I search for movies that were shot there.
Yeah.
And it was the same with Key West, and I saw. I went there already knowing, I want to see the cemeteries and I want to see the cats, Hemingway's place, and because I take some impressions from movies before, I know that some of them will be really interesting and some of them will disappoint me. Yeah. So I'm okay with being disappointed a little bit. I don't that adjusts my expectations a little bit. So Key West was fantastic, and I stayed there for 3 days, and for 3 days I debated within me, do I want to live in Key West or do I want to live in Miami? Because the original plan was Miami, I just wanted to see, but Key West was so attractive, and I was there in the month of August, so August gives you
the least attractive time of year.
No, but that's the month that gives you the most impression that it's actually going to be cheap to be there.
The only month.
August is when you think, Key West is not that expensive, and all the hotels have space, and it's easy.
October rolls around.
Wait until October, right? So I was really debating that, and what made me decide not to was that, it's only one road in and out, so traffic is going to be a pain sometimes, and I felt that it's too isolated in that sense. So maybe later, at a later time, I may do it.
Yeah.
And that later time, I don't think it's coming in the sense of going there and renting a place and living there, but as I'm planning to have a boat, my plan is to have Florida as my base, right? And do most of my maintenance and provisioning and be here. So that means no matter how much I travel, I'll be here every winter or so, right? At least for a few weeks, and sometimes accumulate some of the maintenance to do during that time. And Miami and Key West are very natural destinations for that. I want places with a lot of structure, a lot of people with experience, and the Florida Keys are a pretty good place for it.
For sure.
But let's talk more about Massachusetts. So what else happened there? And where did you meet?
well, that skips way ahead.
It's way later. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
My first time in Key West happened when the Air Force decided to send me to Tropical Survival School, which is like water survival school, in 1973 at Patrick Air Force Base. And
where's that?
That's
Treasure Coast,
Florida, Cocoa Beach area. And a friend of mine and I had just finished C-130 training up at Little Rock Air Force Base, and so we drove down together. We checked into Patrick like a day before our class was to start, and they told us that your class is already full. We're going, no, our orders say that we're supposed to be in this class, and they said, yeah, we've got a bit of a backlog, so we're not going to be able to put you in a class for another 12 days. You just go do it, whatever you want, but make sure after 12 days you're back here on whatever, the 21st.
So you got an impromptu vacation.
And so, yeah. And
the government's expense.
Yeah, at first we thought, well, we don't want to be charged leave. We don't want to take vacation. We want to save our vacation. And of course they said, oh, no, you won't be charged leave. This is an authorized delay, so just go and do whatever you want. And so my buddy and I, Larry Keller, I believe was his name, we looked at each other and said, let's go to Key West. So we drove on down, forgot how long a drive it was down and how many bridges there were before we finally got there.
And at that time, the road was narrow and just one lane going, one lane coming back, right?
And a lot of it was 30 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour. So it was a low, long, slow drive. But then when we got there, we called up the Navy quarters and found a room for $2 a night.
Okay.
That's what they charge visiting officers to stay to stay at the quarters. And we thought, well, let's just stay here the whole 12 days. And we were actually in what we call now the Fly Navy Building. And which is a perfect location because it's a short walk to the bar district. It's a short walk to.
It is literally surrounded by the bar district.
All of Key West is basically a bar district.
Exactly. The Navy station is surrounded by a party place.
So, and we're close to the water. I just wish I had known that the Key West Sailing Club was there. Which is now called the Key West Community Sailing Center. We changed it over to a 501c.
Okay.
501c3.
Whatever it is.
Something like that.
Non-profit.
Like most businesses.
Yeah.
No problem. But on purpose.
So, but... in the back of my mind, I thought, gee, I'd like to live here. Maybe if I stay through retirement, I can come down and live here. And then I realized how expensive it was, and I thought, gee, that may never, ever be in the cards for me. And so off I went to CCK Air Base, Taiwan. And we staged out of CCK down to Thailand and flew in-country missions in Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam.
What did you fly?
C-130.
C-130?
Hercules, Lockheed Hercules, 4-engine turboprop.
Yeah, that's an impressive aircraft.
It's surprising, I guess, is a better word than scary. But they first came off the assembly line in 1952. And they're still making new ones now.
Yeah.
They're still manufacturing brand new C-130s right now. And they've been used in so many different capacities for weather, for hauling troops and
capabilities
cargo.
are incredible, and now they have so many variations that are
I just saw an article about them. They want to put floats on them and turn them into big float planes.
Really? You want to try that? Where do I sign up for that?
I don't know if that sounds like a good idea. I mean, putting skis on them to fly down to Antarctica, I thought was an acceptable modification, and there are lots and lots of applications for special operations, which is what I was involved in for many years. And so they had specially modified C-130s for that. And also in special ops were the gunships, which they graduated to from the AC-47 Goonie Birds.
I imagine when they shoot all those things at the same time, how much the aircraft must be drifting to the right, and then you have to correct it.
Yeah, probably.
You must probably feel that, like.
It's impressive to hear them, the ones that are the gunships. When we stay up at Eglin Air Force Base in the Panhandle, Florida, they fly out of there, and those things, the sound they make is just incredible. Brrr, when they fire those guns.
Yeah, like the A-10,
Similar,
Yeah, the miniguns are incredible. The Gatling guns, golly, they fire 6,000 rounds a minute. So oftentimes they only let a 2 or 3 second burst go out, which still is 900 rounds or 1,000 rounds.
Enough to do some damage.
It's enough to ruin someone's weekend.
Yes.
And because they're all gyro stabilized on a platform, they're extremely accurate. we made a lot of friends with Army Special Forces, Navy SEALs, and Army Rangers with that platform. And it turned out to be very reliable because it's on a C-130 platform that they know for a long
of
time
volume
how to keep them flying.
Yeah. The experience I was the argument of safety in rockets, for instance, has been discussed a lot lately, especially because of commercial rockets and things like that. And as you know, I follow that a lot.
Yeah, you do.
Probably notice. You probably notice, and one of the reasons that the rockets are going to become will become safer is cadence of launches, because if you count all the rockets that were ever launched, it's of orbital class. It's something like 2,000 or 2,500. I don't remember, but it's some number like this. And commercial flights are pre-COVID were 41 million flights per year.
Yeah.
So imagine how much data you have. Any little problem, any little tendency, any little pattern of a problem can be detected when you have so much data.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that aircraft became so reliable. In the military, it's not that reliable because of the nature of the missions. The nature of the missions occasionally
or dangerous.
occasionally create a situation that comes from outside of the aircraft and make or the envelope of the operation is really edgy. But even that is managed to a quite reasonable degree. But aircrafts are so safe. And the more I learn about flying, this is one thing that I want to pick our brain a little bit. The more I learn about flying from the point of view of pilot, and especially from the point of view of test pilot, which is what I will be.
Yeah.
The more I learn about it, the more I love it. It's slightly complex, but it's fantastic. Because when I was a kid, I had this romantic image about flying, that you would get into an airplane and it would be like you do in a car. In a car, you can drive in a way that is quite spontaneous. You see, like my father used to take us to drive around on Sundays, right? And then he would just go around the city, different places, and and then occasionally find an ice cream joint, and then we would have an ice cream, and that was Sunday, right? Sunday entertainment. So it was very free and spontaneous. Flying is not that. I discover in recent years, as I study flying, that you go from one contingency plan to another, all the way. Every part you say, okay, if anything goes wrong here, I can land there. But if anything goes bad here, I can land there. So you have all these contingency plans all the way to your destination, right? In a commercial, if you're flying Tampa to Miami, you may have 2 or 3 of those possibilities, right. and when you are, and if you are approaching your destination and that destination has some problem like weather, low visibility, below your minimums, as you say, then you already have right there on the book. Okay, you have 2 or 3 others that you already consider that they are within range. So it's a very pre-planned activity. Even when you go for sightseeing, you do it within a certain range that you analyze that entire range. Okay, I can do it in this valley, but I cannot go to that edge because there is no return, no way to return then. You already pre-plan it. So when I was thinking of how I'm going to design the test flights for my boat, I thought, okay, I need to plan that way. Need to think, okay, how much space do I need And what happens if a boat shows up
Yeah.
coming from some direction? What happens if I suspect that there is something floating on the water? It may be a log, maybe
Sure.
some debris that is going to ruin my weekend,
Yes.
right? So I need to have plans for that. And what happens if I have an electrical problem and run out of power, and then I cannot come back? Who do I call? Who is it appropriate to call? Right? So that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Am I going to annoy the Coast Guard every time that I have a problem? Or am I going to plan for it and have a friend ready to go and tow me? So all those things that change the way I think about flying come from learning how pilots do it. And I think that pilots have this, it is a privilege point of view of knowing how things work behind the curtains, knowing how you have to prepare and how you train and what then creates an accident. It's rarely one mistake. It's usually a sequence. You need a sequence of 2 or 3 or 4 mistakes in a row to have the accident, usually.
Yeah.
But many times...
I've read that many times in the accident reports afterwards. Nothing is ever simple. It's like it may start out simple.
Yeah.
With just one thing occurring. One of the engines is overheating. So
and sometimes that sequence of errors, sequence of mistakes was committed by different people. So it's not like there was one idiot that did all 4 mistakes. Mm-hmm. Very often is regular people with good intentions, sometimes inadequate training, or sometimes it's a situation that is new enough that something was not adequate. So learning that is fascinating to me. Learning about all aspects of it is fascinating, and at the risk that I need to watch myself when I'm visiting you guys, to not unload a barrage of questions on you, which would make the visit unpleasant. So, but right here now we are on my territory, so I'm going to abuse you a little.
Do you watch those shows on the Weather Channel and I think on the History Channel, like engineering disasters and the air disaster shows? Because they really point out what you're talking about, how things get compounded.
I find them so superficial.
They are.
I prefer to go to channels like the Dan Grider or some other channels that are, or Blanco Lirio, where they go way deeper into the reports and they do the forensics and they go and visit the places and issue their opinions from a perspective that you, the viewer, is either a professional or at least you are well informed. When you are doing a program for the History Channel, you presume that the viewer is a layperson.
Sure.
But when you are watching Dan Grider, he presumes that you're a pilot. So he goes straight into the jargon. He goes straight into the deep, So he presumes that you are, at least if you are not a professional, that you are well informed, and that you are searching. Or I see channels like there are certain people that I like to watch, like Eric Weinstein. Eric Weinstein, when he talks, it's not about flying, but when he is talking about anything, in the beginning he was explaining in the beginning of his episodes on his podcast that I'm going to go straight into the jargon and not worry about it. And if you fall behind, I know that later you can research and you can study and you can come back. And people actually like it. I like it. I prefer to not be able to follow everything. And then later, if I feel the need, I go back, I study those terms and whatever it is. I was recently watching a video about the 737 Max, and and it started from the MCAS system, so MCS, and then it went deeper into, okay, so what caused those crashes, and how did that go through the design and the software design, and then the training, and actually what were the systems that were actually present on the airplane, but the pilots were not aware of it.
Right.
So in one of those flights, they could have turned off the system, but they didn't know about it because the training was not updated.
Right.
So it started from that point, and then it went deeper in talking about the process the FAA uses, how they validate those systems and things like that. And it was very difficult to watch in the beginning because a lot of things were going right above me. But then it gave me a list of things to study.
Yeah, as opposed to having it dumbed down for you.
Yeah. So I understand that History Channel or Discovery may be a little more entertaining, but no, I'm really a geek into this, and I watch videos, especially about wing and ground effect vehicles. I watch, and you may have noticed that I'm using terms here on this podcast, and I'm not caring to explain much.
Oh.
Because my viewers know that I like these things, and some of them will research that.
He went through a phase where he was real interested in those wig too. Yeah.
But I
actually sent out some resumes to try and get hired by the companies that were doing experimental use, because I thought, okay, I've been a boat captain for decades. I've been a pilot for even more decades.
You have the two skill sets necessary.
That's right. I'm sitting right in the middle, where I should be in the driver's seat. Of any of the test aircraft, and
it's so difficult.
There was a big input of investment into an Australian firm that was testing.
Is that the same one that made the airship? The Airship 8? There are two. I don't remember if that one is Indonesian or Australian. But there is one in Australia, there is one in Indonesia, that they are building this craft. They're being used in resorts there, in the Pacific and things like that. That is amazing, but there is so little information online. By online, I mean YouTube. In English. But in Russia, there is plenty.
Oh yeah, and the Russians
have
a terrible safety record with their wigs. They
have a terrible safety record with everything.
With cosmonauts,
they're expendable.
Early space exploration.
But so I started discovering that but I can. My Russian is not good, but it's good enough to watch a video. Like I can watch a video in Russian and I understand what they're talking about. So I started watching a lot of videos in Russian about it, and that's how I learned most of what I know about wing and ground and how their design and their tendencies and the tendency to pitch up and things like that. But very recently, a lot of videos start to pop up about wing and ground from the modeling world, because the guys doing models have to deal with a lot of the same problems, at least the aerodynamic, and some of the stability problems and things like that. And they go in detail. They go 30 minutes into the video just explaining, okay, why did he, for example, why I designed the boat with VTEL, and recently I changed my mind and decided to do a T-tail because I saw a really good explanation of why it's preferable to have the elevator outside of ground effect. Because if you have the elevator going in and out of ground effect, it creates fluctuations. But if the elevator is all the time outside, no such problem. Oh,
Yeah. Well, ground
Knowledge
effect is really a gray area for the line. They say, okay, ground effect really only acts one half of the wing length distance above the water.
Yeah.
And you go, well, yeah, but it still has an effect. You get extra lift if you're 3/4 of a wing length above the water.
Yeah. But you get a lot more when you are 25% from the surface. That's when you really feel it. To the point that I found a video of pilots botching the landing or having trouble because they were, especially student pilots, when they had low-wing airplanes, and they were trying to land it, the airplane would resist.
Yeah.
I don't want to go that close. And the guy is trying to land, and he still didn't get that feel for how much
you have to force it down.
how much. So they overshoot, or they don't push enough, or the flying is amazing because it's multivariate. You're controlling power, you have parameters for power, but then you have the stick, but then you have several other things, and the flaps, and the other thing, and the other thing. So
it's the same thing. If you have several hundred hours in an airplane, and every time you fly it, you have a nearly full fuel load and a nearly full airplane, and then all at once you're flying with it and you're landing with an empty fuel load and no supplies, no cargo, no passengers in the back. And you get down to land, it just wants to float forever and ever. And if you're not on a really, really long runway, I mean, you basically have to, stick it.
And
get down.
And what you said is so counterintuitive because people would think, wow, if the airplane is empty, should be easier. Everything should be easy. It should be easier to land. Should be easier to go around. Everything should be easier. No, no. It turns a curveball to you that makes it really difficult. So you will have to go through that. And how is it called? Positive landing, when you really push it to avoid aquaplaning, for instance. Like you land it, but you push it against the ground. Otherwise, it will go over the water.
You plant the airplane down on the runway.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you're going to run out of runway. And you can't reverse the engines while you're still airborne.
Right. Right. So, you are in the Air Force and you visit Key West and you like it.
Oh, yeah. But that was wonderful.
And how long between that and you actually moving to Key West? How long?
Oh, goodness. Decades.
30 years?
Yeah, because I was down here in 1973. And
when
then,
you moved in 2003 is when you first moved to Key West.
Yeah. 2003 is when
30
I
years.
moved down there. And, it's funny the way that your life is so much changed by one little item, or one little consideration, or in this case, a phone call. They always say when you get fired or laid off from a job, one door closes, but other doors open.
Right.
And when we decided, rather than have Lori quit her job in Kansas City and move down to the Florida Panhandle, Fort Walton Beach, where I was living, I was just completing my project, my military construction project down in Fort Walton Beach, and I was about to be unemployed as well.
Fort Walton Beach?
Yeah.
That's where I retired,
And so...
we jumped like 40 years there, but
Fort Walton Beach, that's in Panhandle, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
up in the Panhandle, between Destin and Pensacola.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Eglin Air
I
Force
remember
Base,
running through it.
Beautiful place. I've been trying to get an assignment there my whole life, but in any case, it wasn't until I was in Panama on my retirement assignment, and the Air Force had me sign all the papers. I'm retiring in Panama.
Panama City, you mean?
No,
Or
Panama
Panama
City,
County?
Panama.
Panama City, Panama.
Ah, Panama.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was the airfield manager down there, and they gave me a 3-year assignment, and I was going to retire from there. And I was pretty happy with that area. I had my sailboat with me. I was going to be able to sail and go scuba diving and fishing, and I was buying a house, and everything looked great. And then all at once they came up with this plan to pull Noriega out of Panama, and Operation Just Cause went underway. And at the end, after playing hard rock music for 3 days and keeping him from sleep while he sought refuge in a church, and finally surrendered, and we got him out of the country and charged him with the crimes that he had been committing, running drugs. All at once they said, okay, we need to fill Panama with nation builders. Every combatant that was in Operation Just Cause has to be reassigned out of the country. And I'm going, well, I only have like 11 months left before my forced retirement. You're forcing me to retire. And so they said, well, okay, so your reassignment's going to be off the books, basically, because you don't have to go fill a shot. Where do you want to go? And I said, well, I've always wanted to go to Hurlburt Field, Florida, and the Florida Panhandle. It's been on my dream sheet for 20 years. You've never seemed to send me there.
No,
they sent me up there.
Okay.
And so they sent me up there. So here, I had my whole rest of my life planned out to live and work in Panama.
In Panama.
And suddenly, all at once, the needs of the Air Force say, no, you got to go back to the States.
I have a friend that he signed up on the Air Force at, 18? So, I don't know, 18, 19. He joined the Air Force because his dream was to travel the world and all that. He spent 2 years in the Air Force, or it's a year and a half or 2 years, driving a Jeep in South Dakota around those aircraft that are there, that are just sitting there.
He probably
2
didn't
years
have
driving
the best recruiter. The recruiters nowadays, when they in the all-volunteer force, recruiters will often get you your choice of first assignment.
Yeah.
So you can think of somewhere glamorous. Now, it may only be 2 years or 3 years, but your first assignment, you can normally lock in before you sign on the dotted line. Once you sign on the dotted line,
I used a George Patton line on him one day. I said, hey, it could be worse. You could be shoveling shit in Louisiana. It's like, yeah, maybe. That was not a happy story. So Panama, that was what year? 80.
That was Christmas of '89. The
89?
Operation Just Cause.
Okay.
And so I went. I think I moved to the Florida Panhandle in April of '90, and then retired the next year in '91.
When I was the first time that I met the Hashers, my first introduction to it was when I was running across America. And I started from Florida. I was going up, still going up. I didn't turn left to the Panhandle yet. And a friend told me, oh, that is this network. That is amazing. These people, they drink beer and run. I said, wow, that sounds really interesting. So she introduced me to SOS in Panama City. And he filled up a car with hashers. A little car to pick me up, and I had a stroller, right? So still he filled up a little car with hashers, and they went to pick me up right on the road that goes through the Air Force base there, right?
Tyndall and
Tyndall,
City,
yeah. It's Air Force, right?
Yeah.
So right in the middle of it, they stopped the car, and it looked like a clown car, like 5-6 people got out of it. And that exact moment, they were landing the F-22s. They were brand new, right? And they were training, and they were going slowly and landing. with the wheels down, gear down, and now that, and then I said, wow, I have been received in places, with parties, with beer parties, with cake, with celebration, but never with a flyover. This is the first. And then one of them asked, I wonder if they are training. I said, of course they're new. They're new at this. They are rookies. Didn't you see? They have the training wheels out.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to be invited out to Panama City for the run number 1. I was running with the Emerald Coast Hash, and I believe we had just started the second hash in Fort Walton Beach, the Siete Cerveza hash.
By the way, what was your first introduction to hashing?
That was
first.
That was in Okinawa.
Okay.
In Okinawa, and I believe it was 79. Hasakashi seems to think that the Okinawa hash didn't start till 1980, but I remember early in 1980, Jock, the founder of the Okinawa hash, getting transferred. He was in the Navy, and he was retiring, so they were transferring him to San Diego for retirement. And he had just come from Taiwan, where he was I think he was the harbor master for Keelung Harbor in Taiwan for the U.S. Navy, which was a big U.S. Navy port. We played rugby, and as a matter of fact, I had played rugby against Jock in Taiwan, and that's where we met him, because, after a rugby match, everybody's friends. You play as hard as you can against each other.
It is, by the way, a lot of people don't know this. It is a tradition that after the game, no matter how much they fought and they hit each other, both teams go to drink together.
Yeah.
Right? That's the tradition of the game. And I think it's so beautiful. It's such a... Thinking of in terms of game theory, this is such a smart rule.
Yeah.
A smart tradition.
Yeah, the sportsmanship ethic just rises beyond all the other games when you talk about that. And so I was fortunate enough that we ended up getting a big Okinawa Rugby Union just in Okinawa. And so we had lots of games and lots of fun games. And oftentimes when we played the Japanese, there wouldn't be a single English speaker on the Japanese team, and there wouldn't be a single Japanese speaker on our team. Yet we'd play a full game, and after the game, we'd both party together.
Yeah.
And to see, the Japanese and American players, arm in arm drinking and getting each other a beer and talking about the game with hand signals and gestures and whatnot.
And especially after a player. I played rugby a little bit in Brazil against Uruguayans. We used to live on the beach, and Uruguayans are crazy about rugby. It's their number one sport above football. So it's just below Catholicism in terms of their religion, right? So it's they love playing, and I used to play with them on the beach. And at that point, I already got the idea. Even though I was much dumber than I am now, if you can believe, but I already got the idea that especially if another player irritates you a lot, like during the game, he's really chasing you, and he's really breaking your game, and it gets annoying, right? And then after that, you meet at the bar, and he brings you a beer that dissipates all that bad feeling. It dissipates everything, and then you sing together, and then you drink and sing together. And that's it. There is no bad blood about it.
And you'll often hear more experienced rugby players give pointers, like I was able to do this to you because you let me. If you did this, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
But through the whole game,
I exploited that.
Yeah.
That
and so I exploited that particular part. So in the next game, now you know how to cover yourself for that. And and that just, all that does is make everybody a better player.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of it in many ways through military culture. I have a lot of friends that are ex-military, mostly because they're hashers. And a lot of them, like the taunting, the jokes, the insults, all going through all the time, right? It's like every joke is an insult, right? In one way or another. But that's how you know that you can trust them. Because if someone gets offended easily, if someone turns on you because of a joke, because of a pesky comment or something, sometimes there are difficult times. Sometimes there is crisis and trouble and all that. And you know that that's the fucker that is going to turn on you when things turn difficult. Right? But if a person can take the joking and the drinking and the insults and all that, which are in a way in good nature, but they are tough. They are, we are
sometimes it makes you have to think on your feet.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes but if you have that fortitude, then people know that they can trust you when things go weird. And I have a friend that I was explaining it to him, and he brought his date on. It was like a dinner, a bunch of friends, and he brought his date, and she got really easily offended by some easy things. And I told him, and during the conversation, I said, yeah, in the military, people do this because that's how we know who we can trust. And a few weeks later, he told me, oh yeah, that didn't work out because she would, just as I said, she got offended by that. Every time that we got tired, that we were doing something that was difficult or annoying or something like that, she would turn on me. And yeah, it worked. It worked exactly that way. But it's a lot of the hashers used to be military before the internet. It was almost exclusively military and diplomatic service. But then now a lot of civilians are coming in. And I am occasionally telling people that it's fucking up because a lot of civilians are joining in. They get offended too easily.
Yeah,
they get offended by songs. Yeah. They want to cancel stuff, and that breaks the hash. And I have seen several hashes already divide into two different hashes, where the people that are more purist and they want to have a more vigorous experience, they create their own hash and keep the Karens out.
Yeah.
But then that creates, first of all, two smaller hashes, two smaller kennels, but also creates a kennel that is very intense and very fun and nice, and then creates one that is bland and family oriented and it's shitty. And people,
it may not be shitty, but it appeals to a different
often is.
clientele.
But I say that understanding that I look at my personality profile and I'm very disagreeable. Actually, I am disagreeable to a level that is if it was just a little more, it would be a problem, and it's occasionally a problem the way it is. It's too easy for me to disagree and to show it immediately. Not in anger, and that's the problem. If it was in anger, that would just make me Italian. No, I do that cold, and that is bad. So I need discipline to keep myself from hurting people because I'm too disagreeable, right? So I understand that sometimes I react to things like that from that point of view. And then I tell myself, just relax. It's not your show anyway. You know, it's not your kingdom. So relax, just enjoy. You know, but I need to say it to myself. You know, it doesn't come naturally to me.
Yeah. And in the same vein, I know a lot of kennels in the U.S. for some reason believe that every single hash name should be as dirty and as offensive as possible.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that really portrays the ethic of the hash.
It's not necessary, but
it's confined to the U.S. only.
It's the U.S. only.
And all the other countries. It may be some anecdote or from some experience.
It may be dirty, but very often they focus on being funny. And I think that funny is a better equation for that.
Yeah.
I would prefer a really funny name.
Sure.
Than a dirty name.
And a lot of the names, like in Australia, you know, this is Skippy.
Yeah, they're short.
It's short. It's quick.
That's a call sign.
And it's like
that's a call sign. Pilots have names like that.
No, he got taken out by a kangaroo once when he was running down the street.
Yeah.
So his name's Skippy. And Ray. Is that a hash name? Ray? Well, yeah, he got stung by a
manta ray.
Stingray.
Stingray.
Yeah, manta rays don't have stingers.
Oh, yeah.
They'll just swallow you whole.
But
right.
But they're vegetarians, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah.
But
they have really big mouths.
All my food is vegetarian.
Yeah, you know, in the U.S. it would have some toilet mouth garbage along with. You know, poked or fucked by a ray or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I see too much insistence in being sexually dirty name. Yeah. And sometimes the names are just dumb. And, I would prefer funnier names.
Yeah. I see people coming out, enjoying the hash, getting named.
And then
abandoning the hash because it's
too much. Yeah.
They just can't stand the name.
Yeah.
And last night I was surprised. One guy, I've only seen him at 3 or 4 hashes, but I feel that he's somewhat comfortable with the hash. Mm-hmm. Absolutely hates his name.
Uh-huh.
And his name has a little bit of a racial overtone, and he is black. So, you know, adding the word chocolate to the name.
But here's let me suggest a way out for that. I think that when people really don't like their names, just change it.
Yeah, and then,
because there is no official roster of the names. Yeah. You know, change to something funny.
If it's going to keep them from coming.
Yeah. Change your name. I told that to people already. Just change it. Don't ask for permission. Yeah. Just change it. Get a necklace. Start introducing it. At some point, everybody will forget the old one. You know. But you need to push it forward without. If you ask for permission, it will fail.
Right.
If you suggest it, it will fail. You have to just impose it. It's like a joke because it is a joke.
You know, when Marilyn Manhole was the tyrant to the Key West hash, he would issue decrees.
Because he was the tyrant.
Because he was the tyrant.
In Guam, that's what they do. Yeah.
That tradition came from Guam. And Guam had some really fun tyrants. As a matter of fact, when Corrigan was tyrant in Guam, I ran the hash over there many a time. And it's pretty funny because, you know, a lot of the decrees are just silly.
Yeah.
But when it came to namings, you didn't vote. Everybody suggested, and then they had a whole bunch of names, and then Marilyn Manhole would decree, okay, his name is such and such. Okay, dismissed. Everybody call the person back in. And so when Slut got named, and she was so proud of her name, and I said, I really don't think you want that as a hash name for the rest of your life?
Mm-hmm.
Then she goes, oh yeah, it's fun. It gets the word out that,
Good.
I might be entertaining.
Good.
Sexual experience from people, and it's really good. And then all at once, while she was working in a restaurant, a hasher yelled out her name from all the way across the room.
Yeah.
Waluigi.
And it's like, okay, I see what you mean, music. I didn't anticipate that happening.
Yeah.
And
She didn't anticipate someone being that dumb.
yeah.
I got named in El Paso.
Oh.
And a really not an offensive name, but it was a name that nobody would understand unless they knew the story first. Because without that context, the name didn't make any sense, right? So a lot of names, they require an explanation for you to really understand the how they are
derived.
the punchline. A lot of names are punchlines.
Yeah.
So then when you hear the joke, now the name is really a lot funnier. But in my case, the name was not a punchline. The name was an explanation to a long story. It was in Spanish, which made it even more incomprehensible. Because now you had to explain the story, and you had to translate the name, and you had to explain why that is a specific translation to some part of Mexico. So it was so bad that, and they were so drunk. It was after the 30-pack run. So they run a marathon divided in 30 loops, drink a beer per loop.
Lord.
Yes. I gave up after 18 loops.
Yeah.
18 beers. I never drank so much in 24 hours. But I was getting lost. I missed the trail. If you get lost
After you've already run the same trail
17 times, you did the same trail 17 times, and then you miss the trail, that means you are really drunk. And I thought, I'm going to kill myself doing this. I'm going to get run over by something, or I'll run into something. And then I stopped. But some people did it. So the hashers were so drunk at the end that they named me. And then the next day, some of them were sending me messages asking, did we name you? What name did we give you? I said, you cannot even remember, fuck you, I'm not telling you. And then the week after, I went to Munich. And then I asked them, can you please name me? Because I got a stupid name. And they said, oh, don't worry about it, you'll get one now. And then they gave me one, which is As on the Rocks. But As on the Rocks is kind of benign and simple, but it is a punchline to the situation that I was that day. So if I tell the story, people go like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, people always assume there's a story behind my name, and there's not. Because
and your name is
Thar She Blows.
Thar She Blows.
And
That's a sailing.
Exactly,
A sailing
and that's
thing,
why they gave
right?
it to me. Yeah.
But please explain, because it's a sailing
Well,
expression.
it's more about whaling
It's
than
whale.
sailing. Yeah, when the old sailors would spot a whale, that was their expression. Rather than "Hey, there's a whale over there," they would say "Thar She Blows."
Okay.
Yeah, so it came from the whaling industry. But
Alright.
they named me that just because I'm a sailor.
Okay.
But of course, naturally, everybody assumes there's some dirty story behind it, but there's not.
Yeah. No, but I saw before I met you. I saw that expression somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I read a lot of history and especially colonial times sailing. You know, the sailing around Africa and how they discover Brazil and the Caribbean and America. And I read a lot about that. So I read a lot of expressions. So I knew that one.
We actually were just up was that in Maine or somewhere? We were driving back from Maine to Boston, and we passed a restaurant by the side of the road that had a great big whale on the sign, and that was the name of the restaurant, Thar She Blows. But unfortunately, it was out of business, so we couldn't even go in and get a T-shirt. But we got a picture of the sign, which was really cool.
Okay, yeah. And music, because of.
Yeah.
I know that you know a lot of great songs, great hash songs. Is that the connection?
Kind of. Music actually turned out to be my third hash name. My first hash name from Okinawa was Shipwreck.
Shipwreck.
And that's kind of a short story. My boat, the propeller on my boat hit a piece of coral rock as I was pulling into this new harbor I'd never been to that we were doing a weekend at. And when it did, it sheared the shear bolts on the prop shaft, so I had no engine to get home, and so no engine to get back out of the harbor, and we couldn't just sail out. And to sail back would have been very, very long time, and didn't have the time because I was flying to Korea the next day. So I put an anchor out on the boat and tied it up to a dock, and figured when I come back from Korea in a week, I'll come out, fix the boat, and we'll be able to take it home. Well, in the meantime, somebody cut the lines, and when the tide came in, she went into shallow water, and when the tide went out, she went over on her side, poked a hole in it, and sunk. So I became Shipwreck by decree of the GM, who was Jock. And and that's what I told everybody. But back then was before the internet, before there was email, before there was a lot of communication between different kennels. And so a lot of kennels were isolated in many, many different ways. Some kennels, like when I started running with the Angeles City hash down in the Philippines, they we don't acknowledge other hash names from other kennels. We assign our own hash names. And
that's an opportunity.
And so, as it was really a kind of a stupid story. But one of the rugby players down there, and we were coming down for a rugby tournament, but there was a hash also, so I ran the hash run. And right as we got to the start, he introduced me. He was trying to say the hasher from Okinawa, but we had already been drinking from the rugby match. And so he couldn't say hasher from Okinawa, so what he said was, this is the Hashinawa. This is the Hashinawa. And he tried to correct himself, but said it again. Well, the third time he said Hashinawa, they declared
your name
unanimous right there. This is Hashinawa. Yeah. They made me drink right there. I drank.
I love those names. I love those spontaneous names.
And so everybody for a long time is like, Hashinawa, what kind of a name is that? What does that mean?
I remember a lot of names.
It's a lame story.
But sometimes the name is so funny. Like that's how we name here this girl Only When I'm Drunk.
That's actually a good hash name.
Yeah.
So it was when I was hashing in Subic Bay and the Olongapo hash, what they called the Olongapo hash then. It's now morphed into the Subic Bay hash, is the name now. But we did a big run. I don't remember what number it was, but it was. It could have been run number 25 or something like that, but we ended up getting a lot of new folks and a lot of visiting hashers all together, and we ran. It was an A to B, and the B was so far away that the Hares hired a Penske truck to bring everybody back to the start. And at the on home, of course, they had a couple of kegs of beer, and we hadn't even finished the first keg when they're starting to say, "Okay, circle's over. Let's think about loading up and going back." And everybody's like, we haven't even drunk half of the beer yet because we haven't floated the first keg, and we're singing songs, and people are liking the songs, and they're already prompting me for, okay, we heard some of the colorful, funny songs.
Oh man, I heard you sing so many great songs.
don't you have one that's dirtier? We want to hear a dirtier song. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but one of the hashers, as a matter of fact, the boyfriend or fiance of the co-GM was a Navy chaplain. I didn't find that out until a week later. But he's a Navy chaplain, and I'm just singing away with all these dirty, gross rugby songs. And yeah, I mean, we did S&M, man.
I love that song, man. I love
My Girl's
that
a
song.
Vegetable.
I don't know that.
Oh, really?
Vegetable?
Oh, yeah. My girl's a vegetable. She lives in the hospital. I do most anything to keep her alive.
I don't know that song.
Oh, and the verses just get worse and worse. The
S&M Man is really, really bad.
Yeah.
That's why I love that song.
But it wasn't.
Makes me leave the room.
It wasn't until I finally launched into all 10 verses of Dead Whore in the Penske truck in the dark with the brand new keg that we just tapped. While we're all drinking and singing all the way
inside
back.
the Penske truck.
Inside the Penske truck.
Like a bunch of wetbacks.
Yeah, if you haven't been to or from a hash in the back of a moving truck.
I did that.
Yeah.
Guess where? In El Paso.
Oh, yeah.
In El Paso, they did that. Okay, everybody in the truck.
Yeah.
And just as we got back to the start, we had floated the keg.
Oh, my God.
And the back door comes up, and Hot Tomato was one of the co-GMs that had been driving the truck. And of course, she mentioned right away, that were some of the sickest songs I've ever heard. How dare you? And then, in defense, all the hashers that were in the back of the truck listening to to all these verses, after prompting me for something dirty or something dirty, and then they got it.
They got it.
They just said, those songs are really sick. And they're saying it like, this guy is sick, as a compliment. They are the sickest songs that we've ever heard. They're wonderful. What a great guy. He is music. He's music. He's sick. He's music. And then Hot Tomato goes,
okay, that's
by order of the hash, it is hereby declared. Put a mirror in your hand, down, 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 music. And she renamed me Music. The interesting point about that is Hot Tomato, that renamed me Music, is the daughter of Jock, who named me Shipwreck. Originally, who started the Okinawa hash.
That's another thing about hashing, that it's so old, because hashing started in 1938, that you can have multi-generational stories.
Sure.
There's someone that met the grandfather of the other one that was the hasher in the other country, and you have stories like that.
Yeah. Not to belittle the 1938 story, but as was brought up during the last big diamond celebration down in Kuala Lumpur, I think everybody in the know now agrees that Mother Hash in Kuala Lumpur, the Hash House Harriers, actually started in 1939. But the Springett hash has documentation showing that they've been running for 1, 2, or maybe even as long as 3 years earlier, but without a charter. And when you talk about when did something really start? Okay, did it start with a charter? And when G wrote the charter, which is required by the government of Malaysia, or Malaya back then, that's the official document that maybe it's the oldest document for the Kuala Lumpur men's hash, which is just referred to as the Hash House Harriers, even though we affectionately refer to it as the Mother Hash.
Mm-hmm.
But Torch Bennett and G both ran with the Springett Hash before they were ever assigned to Kuala Lumpur.
So, anyway.
Totally possible. And when I think of I like to have a story to tell, because it gives a narrative for people to jump in, and then they participate and all that. So it's nice to have one story, whatever story.
Yeah.
And when you're telling a good story or when you're telling a joke, don't let facts get in the way.
Oh, he never does.
Stories tend to be much more colorful.
They're usually more interesting. But be sincere. Sometimes I play a game with people in which I say, you can ask any question, and I promise that I'm going to be sincere. And then at some point someone said, but you said you were going to only tell the truth. I said, no, I didn't say that. I said that I was going to be sincere. And that's not the same thing. And it's nuance, But before I get into that nuance, let me tell you about two names that I really love from El Paso. A few names. One is the teacher. I don't know if he's a school teacher, but they call him the teacher. But then there is this girl that he brought in once, and when they asked who made you come to the hash, she said, "Oh, the teacher made me come." Boom, name right there.
There you go.
Teacher made me come. The other was this guy that he was, I don't know, in his 50s, and he brought his girlfriend to the hash, and she was 18. So they named him Kindergarten Cock. Which I thought was a really funny name. But I have a friend that he's going to be watching this, I know. He is an immigration officer, and he had a girlfriend. Here's how the story goes. He had a girlfriend from Mexico, and she started giving him too much of a hard time, and he got her deported to Mexico. Then he got another girlfriend from Mexico, and she became a hasher too, and she went psycho bitch on him once, back to Mexico. So they named him Mexican Takeout. Then he got this girlfriend that they are together for years now. It really worked out, and they have kids and all that. So it looks like, okay, this is really stable. This is going well. So they name her Mexican Leftovers. That is so politically incorrect. That's so in any other context, both names really offensive, but they're so funny. But I kind of ruined it a little bit, or improved on it, maybe. That when I was running through El Paso, the El Paso hashers heard from Old Faithful in Texas. She told them that Old Faithful is another funny name because she used to show up for the hash once a year, so they call her Old Faithful. But she told the hashers in El Paso that I was coming, and they hosted me and they helped and all that, and we met in a restaurant. And when Mexican Takeout shows out, he really looks like a slightly younger version of Danny Trejo, Machete. Mm-hmm. The moment he walks in, I said, "You look like Machete." And everybody looked at him and they went like, "Yeah!" They named him Machete right there. So when he signs up anything on the messages or anything, he said, Vic Mexican Takeout, a.k.a. Machete. So you okay, Panama. We're back to Panama, and then you went to the Panhandle, and then you retired.
Yep, I retired from the Air Force.
Did you know each other already at that time? No. Okay.
When I retired from the Air Force, I still had an ex-wife and kids to support, and the VA educational assistance changed because my intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want an IPA
The IPA is fine.
or a triple
No, the
or a
IPA
light beer?
The IPA is fine.
IPA?
Oh
For
yeah,
you?
I'll go for an IPA too.
IPA,
Lagunitas? Sure.
All right.
So when I retired from the Air Force, I found my wife took me back. Ex-wife took me back to court for the 13th time.
Somehow you deserve.
To increase the child support. And each time that she took me back to court, the archaic Florida court systems would make me pay for my attorney and her attorney if she won, and if she lost, then I'd pay for my attorney and she would pay for her
Let's hear
attorney.
these kind of stories.
So you always lose at least a little.
Yeah. So in any case, the VA took away the educational assistance for follow-on pilot training 2 months before I retired. And that's right when I was applying to get my commercial pilot and airline transport pilot license. And so I didn't have the money, and the airlines were not in a position to hire me without those ratings. And so I ended up getting a job as a government contractor doing military construction projects. The biggest project of which I had was the renovation of the climatic laboratory, the McKinley Climatic Laboratory, which is a national mechanical engineering landmark. In any case,
You would love that place, Bilton. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like this giant hangar that they can take down to 60 below, or take it up to 140 above, or they can make it snow or hail or rain, and they put aircraft in there and they
Cheers.
test them
Cheers.
under all these harsh conditions. It's a really neat place.
yeah, there was actually
Interesting.
7 different chambers. One was a sun, wind, rain, dust chamber. One was an anechoic chamber. One was a salt fog chamber. But the biggest one, the main test chamber, was big enough to have the C5 inside, running engines at full throttle, and maintaining whatever climatic condition we had for that chamber. So
That is badass.
If they needed it for minus 65 degrees, then so be it. That's what we did, and
That's how you prepare an airplane to go to Antarctica, right?
yeah. And to measure temperature swings as well, because a lot of aircraft, they're designed for one particular range of temperature and humidity. And so all at once they start looking outside the envelope because they want to deploy them to some place where it wasn't in the design plans, and so they got to check the seals. And so in any case, I did this $94 million renovation. I was one of several project managers on it, and when I finished,
He can't talk without his hands.
6 or 12 months before I finished is when I met Thar in Trinidad.
That's why I put the microphone on top of a very soft thing, because I know he's going to be
Yeah.
hitting the table all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, I know him that much. So that's where you met Darcy Blows.
Yeah, because Trinidad had won the bid for Inter-America's Hash, and I had a boat charter business up in St. Vincent, and I thought, Hashers may be interested in chartering 2 of my boats to sail down from St. Vincent down to Trinidad, to stay on board the boats at the Trinidad at the Port
Instead
of
of
Spain
a
Yacht
hotel,
Club,
yeah.
instead of a hotel. May want to do day sails during the days before, during, and after the Inter-Americas hash. And then several of them may want to sail back up to St. Vincent afterwards. And so after Thursday night Okinawa Prelude run, I came back sauced to my boat at the Port of Spain Yacht Club, and I found her passed out on my boat. Fast asleep.
Oh my God.
On my boat.
What a danger.
I'm going, what gift is this? Of course, I fully expected her to get in that day, and I gave her directions on how to get into the boat and how to and where the boat was and all that. And she paid.
I paid to sleep
on the boat.
You paid to sleep there.
Yeah.
But why let facts get in the way of a good story?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. We met in Trinidad. I found her passed out on my boat.
That's a much better story.
That's what he tells everybody.
Yeah, much better.
Well, that was early days of the internet, back when Hashell was still a big
What
thing.
year was that?
97.
97? Yeah.
And I had started hashing in 92 in Kansas City. And so I knew about hashing, but not really about the wider world of hashing so much. I mean, we did regional things like that. But three of our guys in the Kansas City hash had gone to the Orlando 95 Inter-Americas hash and came back with these great stories. And I'm like, where's the next one? Sign me up. And they said it's in Trinidad, down in the Caribbean. Keep in mind, I had never been anywhere other than like Mexico and Canada in terms of like out of the country. I'd been all over the U.S., but
That's barely out of the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Mexico and Canada is barely out of the country.
Now I'd seen a whole lot of Canada, but because we drove up the World's Fair in Vancouver and then drove all the way back across Canada and everything. So I had seen an awful lot of Canada, but you're right, that's barely out of the country.
Barely outside, yeah.
And so I hadn't traveled much at all, but I'm like, Trinidad, Caribbean, I got a passport, I can go, you know. And then I saw him post on Hashell that he was doing the sailing trip, and I was already a sailor, and so I said, hey, sailing with hashers, what could be more fun? Sign me up. So he and I had corresponded via email, and I had secured a berth on the boat, and I was going to sail back from Trinidad up to St. Vincent with him. So that's why I was sleeping on that boat at the Port of Spain Yacht Club. So yeah, we met. I mean, we literally met each other the next morning when I woke up, and I said, "Oh hi, you must be music," and he said, "Oh, you must be There She Blows." So that was the story of how we met, which is not nearly as good as the story about the day we got engaged. But
I want to know that one now.
And so we ended up dating, although it was a bit of a long range dating with me in the Florida Panhandle.
You mean long distance dating?
Yeah, long distance.
yeah, because
I am in my long distance dating myself.
Are you?
Yeah, my girlfriend lives in the future.
Oh,
That's very long distance.
that's very cute. I've never heard that before. That's cute. It's your long range plan. Yeah. No, I was working in Kansas City, and he was still in the Panhandle, and I had a really good job up there, and he was soon to be out of a job, and so
That's the thing with a good project manager. Once you complete one project, you have to go find work for another project.
You're back to unemployed. But
so
but it's a different mindset.
Yeah. So he found a job in Kansas City with no problem at all.
With working for Sprint, and the second year that I worked with Sprint,
Sprint was the phone company, right? The cell phone.
They were headquartered in Kansas City. Yeah.
Okay.
Big employer. But I worked for Hallmark Cards. He worked for Sprint. So we worked for the two biggest employers in Kansas City.
Okay.
And the second year, I got Employee of the Quarter.
But I have a question, about exactly that time. How did it feel to be so far from the ocean?
Oh yeah, I did feel isolated. And at the time, I had heard that, Kansas City's on the Missouri River. Perhaps we'll still...
That doesn't count.
It really doesn't count because the water level of the Missouri River in Kansas City is so low, it's not navigable.
But
even by kayak.
But we still sailed almost every weekend.
Yeah. We did go sailing. We did a lot of lake sailing. And
how about those people that they bring their boats from the Great Lakes and they sail all the way to
Great Circle.
Did you make that?
We
Did you ever
haven't,
make that?
we haven't done the Great Circle route, but I did deliver one boat from Texas to Georgian Bay, Lake Huron.
Huron, yeah. So,
But so you went up the Mississippi?
No, we
you
found
went
out
around.
that it was
Around.
faster to go up the Hudson. So
Yeah, so you
we
went
from
around
Texas-
the ICW,
Yeah. Well,
and then you got
Texas
into the Hudson.
Texas to Florida. We went on the outside up the East Coast, up the Hudson River to the
88 Canal.
to the Erie Canal.
Erie Canal.
From the Erie Canal, we took the Oswego Canal to Lake Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Then we took the Murray Canal to the Trent Severn Canal, and took the Trent Severn Canal all the way over to Lake Huron to Georgian Bay. The Trent Severn Canal.
Still better than go up the Mississippi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Against the current, yeah.
The Trent Severn Canal is a spectacular way to spend the summer.
Yeah?
It is an absolutely spectacular way
Must be.
to spend the summer. If you have a boat, now, if you have a sailboat, you have to take the mast down because some of the bridges are only 10 feet high. But it is an absolutely wonderful, fun experience.
I have this thing on my bucket list of doing the Great Loop, of going up the ICW, Hudson,
Right.
Erie Canal, through
Great
the
Lakes.
lakes, down the Mississippi,
To the 10 ton,
and the other is to go to Turkey, Black Sea, and then back all the way to Netherlands and out. That's their big loop. And I'm designing the boat to be narrow enough that I can do it.
Well, we're old enough and have had fun enough on four previous Viking cruises that I've set up as hash cruises that we now are on a hash cruise next summer that starts in Bucharest, goes down the Danube River to the Black Sea, across the Black Sea and up the Dnieper River past Odessa
To Kiev.
to Kiev.
We need to talk to Kiev before you go there.
Oh, we will, for sure.
Because
But that's long
I
now.
have more friends in Kiev and Ukraine in general
Yeah.
than in Florida. To give an idea how
Yeah.
many people I know. I'm very local in Kiev.
Well, that's good. That'll be good because
Yeah.
we.
Oh, you should come on the cruise with us.
I should. Or at least be in Kiev when you get
Yeah.
there. You know,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I have my motorcycle there. I have girlfriends there. I have my own setup in that city.
Yeah.
And I said girlfriends as in plural.
Oh, I noticed that. Not including the one in the future.
Not including that one. No, that one. That's like I joke sometimes that a lot of really rich and powerful men end up marrying, or at least their last marriage, be with a woman that is at least 30 years their junior. So I say, well, okay, then my next wife is not even born yet. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry. Yeah. So you guys met in Kansas City.
Well, we met in Trinidad.
We met in Trinidad.
Trinidad,
we
yeah,
had
and
long
then-
distance. She'd fly down to Florida. I'd fly up to Kansas City a lot. And then
We'd go do hash weekends together, and yeah.
And it was very enjoyable, and we grew to like each other a lot. And then I organized the hash sailing catamaran cruise down in St. Vincent. And when we with a bunch of her friends from the Kansas City hash.
Now you're talking about 90s, right?
This was 99, 98.
98, 99?
Yeah, 98.
Yeah, 98.
Yeah.
And we got engaged in the Tobago Keys, which is, I think, the prettiest spot in all of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very beautiful spot. It's an atoll, and on the east side of the atoll, the coral reef comes up within about a foot of the ocean, but none of it is above waterline. So inside the atoll, it's perfectly calm because the waves break on that coral reef.
Okay.
And when you look out, there is nothing between you and Africa. So it's open to the Atlantic Ocean all the way to Africa. And it's an absolutely stunningly beautiful underwater coral and sandy bottom, alternate with sandy bottom. And there's octopus and lobster and...
Have you ever been to South Key?
Yes. K-Sal?
Yeah, is that interesting to visit? Because I can reach that on that fan.
Yeah.
It's close enough.
It's excellent fishing. There are more triggerfish there than you can shake a stick at.
Okay.
Just hundreds, thousands perhaps. Of
Yeah,
triggerfish.
I really wanted to ask someone that has been there. So is it worth going there?
But
should I fly in that direction?
It's not a coral reef. If you're looking for a beautiful underwater coral experience, you're not going to find it at K-Sal because it's almost all sandy bottom. Now, where the sand drops off, and it drops off rather steeply, there's a bit of a canyon, and so a lot of billfish and a lot of big fish like to run up and down the canyon, so the fishing is very, very good there. But it's very remote. You won't be able to get any fuel there. You won't be able to...
I'll have gear for diving, snorkeling. I want to bring my fins and stuff like that, but that's it. I'm not fishing. I cannot bring a tank. I cannot bring anything. It's very light camping, and if I decide to spend the night and some fishing, and that's it. That's what I can.
There are some very protected areas that you can anchor in, that you can get protection from virtually every direction. So if the seas are up,
it's good to anchor
crashing,
there. Okay.
There's a good anchorage. But there's no water, there's no food, there's no provisions.
Yeah, I have to bring everything.
There's no fuel. There's
nobody lives there.
And it's all sandy bottom. Yeah, it's uninhabited. Bunch of sandbars.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to fly into the Keys, Everglades Park, and Key Biscayne Park. That's my range, more or less. I think that probably the longest that I could, as designed, the longest that I could fly would be Bimini. And then if I spend the night in Bimini, I could fly to the rest of.
Bimini's closer than Key West.
Yeah, but Key West I can do in 2 shots. I can stop.
Yeah.
I can do a stop in La Morada, and then do the other. I can divide in two flights.
Yeah. Well, you could. I mean,
because there is no bathroom on board. I don't know if you notice.
Yeah.
There is no bathroom. There is no nothing, and it's cramped. When I sit on that seat, I literally hear myself click when I get into the seat. It's that tight.
Wow.
It's not uncomfortable, but there is no room to...
Right.
Because the thing may shake a little bit, especially when landing, and you don't want to be loose.
Right.
So I am on a 5-point harness.
Yeah.
And no space left on the side. So I click in, and then I cannot move. No much. I can only move the arms. So I would say any flight longer than an hour is going to start getting painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends.
So
depends.
I prefer. It depends, exactly. You know what's the difference between hug? It's that there's two kinds of diapers. There is Huggies, and there's Depends. You know the difference?
Huggies are for babies, and
No.
Depends are for...
When you're very young and you piss your pants, you get hugs, so it's Huggies. But when you are older and you use Depends, well, it depends if you are on the who is in the wheel. That depends if you're going to get any hugs.
Yeah.
So yeah, my flight situation would be like, okay, every hour, between 1 hour and 1 hour and a half, I need to stop to stretch and walk about and be somewhere, and then I can fly again. So going from here to Key West is very, very doable. Going to Bimini is doable, but then going from there to Freeport is next day, or if the weather is perfect, later the same day.
Yeah.
I would really like to go to Bahamas and Key West, and then I would like to go to, what is that park west of Key West? Tortuga Park, and there are islands along the way.
Yeah, there are.
That I can stop.
Yeah.
So Tortuga, definitely I want to fly there. I want to fly to Bahamas, to Tortuga. Basically, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And then everywhere in between. Yeah. It's easy to forget, if you're not thinking about it, that we are sitting more or less on the outskirts of one of the two greatest diving spots in the world. It's the Grand Barrier Reef and Key Biscayne are the best places to dive in the world. And for some kinds of diving better there, for some kinds of diving better here. One of the greatest fishing areas in the world are right here. We are sitting on this treasure that if you are exploring it by car, you guarantee you don't see any of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Very true.
You need to get on the water. You need to get on a boat.
Yeah.
I keep looking at the maps and I think there is so much to see. There is so much to photograph and to enjoy, and just to be there and camp. And the rules are relatively flexible enough that you can enjoy it, and they are tight enough that you cannot destroy it, So it's pretty good. I am so looking forward to explore the Everglades Park, the Key Biscayne, and all the way to Key West, and then Tortuga.
It'll be fun.
But Tortuga I just need to do once.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been out there.
It's a thing that you think, okay, that after that it's Mexico, right? So there's nothing to see after Tortuga.
Yeah.
But for a long distance, like I could, if Cuba was accessible, then it would be a good idea to go to Key West, and then you go to Cuba, and then you go to Yucatan Peninsula. You could go to Mexico, if it wasn't for all this nonsense in
then Belize.
In between, and then Belize, I would love to go to Mexico, because I think that Mexico is like an apple pie. The greatest parts are right in the middle, and the crust is all the shitty. You get close to the borders, it gets shittier and shittier, and the middle is so fucking funny. And Mexico is an amazing country. It's an amazing country that is difficult to visit.
Yeah.
Because it requires thinking. You need to think, okay, I need a strategy. I need to choose the areas based on logistics and safety. At the same time, it's not something that you can do spontaneously. You have to plan every step of it.
Unless there's a hurricane coming, and then you're like, yeah, Mexico looks really good. That's what we did. That's what we did to get away from Irma.
Yeah.
And we got on the boat. We sailed to Mexico.
Yeah, well, the same reason for Costa Rica, right? Because of that, the peninsula, Costa Rica is like this way in Panama, super protected. That's why they never get hit.
That's true, they don't. They're far south.
Because they're so protected by the peninsula, yeah.
Protected by the trade winds.
Yeah, same reason, like Aruba and
Hurricanes
Curacao.
won't develop down on the trade winds.
Yeah.
They get
Aruba is very
blown apart.
protected. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, please tell us a little more about your sailing experience, because you have been delivering boats, right? All over the place. So all over the place is where? Where have you been sailing? In the world?
Well, we just got back from Greece last month.
Mm-hmm.
We went sailing around Corfu, which was unexpectedly beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous.
Why unexpectedly? Greece is gorgeous.
When I think of Greece, I think of old rocks and architects and archaeologists diving to recover ancient pottery and rocks. And I didn't expect to go down there and see these beautiful beaches and these beautiful giant caves big enough for large ships to sail into, or even 2 or 3 ships to sail into, and just see these wonderful cliffs and rock formations, yet nice, beautiful, protected anchorages.
I love Greece, and I am fascinated by Greece. I want to sail there. The entire Aegean Sea, from Croatia all the way to... I watched it when I think when I was a teenager. I watched this documentary that this guy went from village to village along the coast of Croatia and experiment trying the food. And they would talk to the fishermen, and they would bring the oysters that morning, and they would take the oysters to the local restaurant and cook it, and there was a chef in the program, the show. It was like it was 20 years or 30 years precursor to Ramsay.
Yeah.
Like it was much earlier, but the same idea. So he would get the oysters, and they would study how the locals open and cook it, or whatever they do with the oysters. And I always had that image that I really want to visit the coast of Croatia. And then I did it by motorcycle. So I did it going along from the inside. Mm-hmm. Now I want to do it from the outside, from the water. So I want to do the same tour again, but pretty much the same places again, but by sailboat. Or by on my boat. My boat is actually not going to be sailboat. It's going to be powerboat. I had the dream and the plan of building a sailboat for many years, and then at some point it morphed into being a powerboat instead.
You got older.
I got older. Yeah.
I see that often. With sailors, they're strict.
But I would say it's different. Let me defend that case. Let me make the case that it's not the same, because I am more physically active now than I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I'm more athletic now. After doing that run, a lot of things changed. So physically, I feel very comfortable with sailing, and I do sailing occasionally. I sail with Virgin captains sometimes. We did some long distance sailing. I'm totally okay with that, and occasionally I'm invited to go as crew in deliveries, and which is, to me, I feel absolutely comfortable with sailing. But when I was designing the boat and I was doing the engineering of it, I was learning to do all the stress calculations and to do all that stuff. I thought most of the problems and most of the challenges related to the design are because it has a mast. And it has all those forces working on it. If you design it as a powerboat, it's freaking easy in comparison.
Yeah.
In comparison, the design is easy. Like designing a powerboat is 20% of the work of designing a sailboat. Okay? No matter how complicated your powerboat is, it's so much easier. It's so much easier. So I thought, why don't I design a powerboat? Because as long as I figure out a way to get where I want to go, do I care that much that it is sail? No. Maybe if I had a history of sailing for 30 years, maybe I would think differently. But in my case, being myself, I don't have that much to may not be the right word, but let me use it anyway. I don't have that much to protect. I don't have that much to preserve. Preserve is the word. To preserve in my experience. My experience is a little more of a blank page. So I can do it more or less any way I want. So I thought, I just don't want a diesel engine all the time. I don't want to do that. So I want electric. It's going to be hybrid. But it's going to be a hybrid diesel based. I just don't want to have to deal with the requirements of diesel quality that you have when you have a regular diesel engine. Once I solve that problem, everything else is fucking easy, right? If you don't care the quality of your diesel, everything is easy, right? Everything else is easy. So that's where I put a lot of my research on how can you sell and do propulsion with shitty diesel. And I found the solution for that. And the solution for that is freaking old. It's super simple. And it's in use in many places in the world. Most of those places are in Asia and in India. They use diesel to produce electricity. The shittiest diesel that you can imagine. In this boat this design that I have,
what the cruise ships do nowadays.
Yeah, and in this design that I'm doing, I can do shitty diesel that didn't work on your boat. Put it here, old motor oil, transmission oil, brake fluid. Put everything in, and it still works. As long as you solve that problem, you don't worry about, you don't have a lot of maintenance. But you cannot use a regular diesel engine. You need to use something else. So I gave up on the idea of sailing, even though I think sailboats are the number in terms of the most elegant vehicles in the world. Sailboats are number 2. Number 1 are gliders, are sailplanes. Sailplanes are the most elegant flying machines, and I think that sailplanes
they can't
are
get
the
themselves
most.
off the ground.
Doesn't matter, but I don't care.
Sailboats can get themselves out of a harbor and back in.
I don't care, but I think that sailplanes are so elegant. The only things that I can imagine more elegant than sailplanes are some birds. Certain birds are even more elegant.
And they can get themselves off the ground.
But sailplanes are amazing. And I think that sailboats come right after that. Sailboats have an elegance to them.
Sure.
That is amazing. It's something to study and to enjoy. But my design is going to be power.
And you're going to have limitations and restrictions on where you go and how far you go.
Exactly. I say that I will go. I'll go all the way around the world by coast sailing. Yeah. I'll be always close to the coast. I have no plans of going. I have no plans of doing cross ocean. because
If you're
then
going to go around the world, you're going to
You have
have to
to.
cross an ocean sooner or later.
You're saying
Yeah.
you cross the ocean in an airplane and
but
then you
no,
sail.
but let's say I decide to go from here to Portugal. Okay, if you're going on a sailplane, you're going to go north along the east coast, and then at some point you're going to turn east around Bermuda, and then you're going to turn a little southeast towards Portugal, right? You go
Yeah,
that
sure.
way.
Sure.
If I'm going on a powerboat, I have to go along the east coast, but then I need to go a little farther along the east coast of Canada, and then
Yeah.
I need to go a little more towards England, and then I go south. So I need to go a little further up and east. And I'm in Portugal the same way. What I don't do in my design is go straight, because I cannot carry 3,000
Right.
gallons of diesel.
Yeah.
But and that would not be the strong. It would not be taking any of the strengths of the design. It would be trying to explore some of its weaknesses, and that wouldn't work. So I wouldn't go straight to Portugal, but I would go coastal all the way to Portugal. If I wanted to go then from Portugal to let's
Well,
say South
I
Africa.
think you abbreviated how simple it is. You can't just go from Canada to England to Portugal.
Yeah, but if I
And
was
you
going,
may not even have long enough legs to go to Greenland to Iceland
But
to
if-
Ireland to England.
yeah,
to Portugal.
oh maybe, yeah, but maybe, but what I mean is, I'm not planning to be more than 500-600 miles from coast at any time. Probably. It depends on how it works in reality. Like it's one thing I tell about my design is that it's more or less like hashing. Works better in practice than it works in theory, right? So it may work better in practice. But when I imagine myself going from Europe to South Africa, for instance, I imagine going to the Azores and then crossing to Brazil and then going to South Africa. Not going along the coast of South Africa, because then you go against the
You
current.
know how far it is from the Azores to Brazil?
I know, but I'm going with the currents. Here's the thing: when you sail, you pay attention to where the winds are pushing you. You try to not go against the wind. When you are on power, you try to not go against the current. Going against the current is really a big no-no. So I wouldn't go down the coast of Africa for the same reason that I wouldn't go counterclockwise in the North Atlantic. In the North Atlantic, I would always travel clockwise. In the South Atlantic, always counterclockwise. Right? So if you are designing a boat to be power boat, then instead of looking at the systems of the winds, you need to look at the systems of the currents. And they are, in some cases, they're opposite. So yeah, that's how I would design it. That's how I would design the boat, and that's how I would design the trip. So if I am going South Africa, I'm going counterclockwise. Yeah, let the current help, because otherwise I don't make it. I maybe, or if I do it by spending so much more fuel that then the boat doesn't make sense. Then it's better to put a fucking mast and design for it.
Because
But
in the ocean, there's always wind.
Yeah, but there is always current too.
Except in the doldrums, yeah.
Yeah, but there is always current as well. So if I'm going up the east coast of the US, I can do 2 to 3 knots without spending a drop of diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Just by making
So you
sure
get-
I'm
yeah.
in the middle of the Gulf Stream.
You have to stay in the Gulf
Yeah,
Stream.
I need to stay in
Yeah.
instead of trying to stay up. I need to stay in the middle. So because it's more turbulent in the edges, right? So I
Yeah.
try to stay in the middle. But if I'm planning to go from here to New York, I think, okay, I go to the Gulf Stream, get in the middle, ride it in the middle, and then get out. right? So I need to use that avenue, right? But if I was doing that on sail, the thinking would be completely different. I would look at the charts and windy.com and all that and think, okay, where does the wind takes me in the most favorable way, and exploit that.
Well,
You still
in
use
terms
the
of, in terms of sailing,
Yeah.
we very, very much take into consideration the currents. Because
Oh,
oftentimes, if you're only sailing at 4 or 5 knots, a 3-knot current
Yeah,
is considerable.
we had that problem with Virgin Captain we were going from Virgin Islands to Connecticut, and when we got to we were east of New York, and we were trying to cross the Gulf Stream, and the wind was way east, so we were really on a beam reach all the time, and the performance was not great because it was an older classic boat that was slow, and we were not managing. We were sailing, and trying to go across, and we were drifting east.
Because the Gulf Stream was pushing.
It was
back
too
into
far.
the-
It's too much. So
Yeah.
we had like
Yeah.
3 knots of
I can see that.
current,
Yeah.
East.
while we were doing like 2.5, 3 knots of progress on
Yeah.
wind, and we were losing.
Yeah.
We end up nearly in Rhode Island, and then we had to sail back a little bit. We had to get really close to the coast, sail back a little, and then make it into the
And the
harbor.
Gulf Stream is
But-
so wide up there.
So
Golly,
difficult.
It would have
Yeah.
made so much more sense to cross it earlier, further south.
Yeah, but because of the weather, we went too close to. Actually, the plan was to stop in the island in the middle of
Bermuda.
Bermuda. So the plan was to go to Bermuda, but then we realized that it was during the same week of the America's Cup. So Bermuda was
Oh my
loaded,
God!
right?
Yeah.
You don't want to get into Bermuda during the
No.
America Cup. So then we avoided Bermuda, but we were like within 20 miles of Bermuda, and we kept going north. But if that wasn't the plan, yes, it would make more sense to go more towards North Carolina or like Maryland, and then cross very close and then follow the coast. I would
Yeah.
choose that.
Get into the Gulf
Yeah.
Stream while it's still heading north,
Yeah.
rather than when it's heading east.
Exactly. It was pretty tough to go through, and that's one of the situations in which I learned that the currents matter a lot, and if you don't have sails, they are going to matter 90%. It will be much more important because your boat has some windage. And in my case, the boat is going to be 15 feet high on the middle, so it will have some windage, but the currents are going to be much more important. I can just, if I can do, let's say that at the optimum fuel consumption, I am doing 5 knots. But then you add 3 knots of the Gulf Stream, I'm doing 8. That's pretty good, right? And then only occasionally I do 8 or 9 by pure brute force, spending a lot of fuel, but I'm doing that for short distances, and then I don't care. But the long distance, I'll be using the currents for sure. So all this thinking about boats and airplanes, I find fascinating because it's not intuitive. When I was a kid, I didn't know why did they sail this way, and then why didn't they just sail back? Right?
Not so easy.
Now I understand. No, why is it that there are many questions that I was able to answer recently? For instance, there was this guy that wanted to fly to France, from New York to France, non-stop. It was Lindbergh times. or so. And he realized that he needed too many permits and flight plans and this and that. So instead, he flew to Svalbard and had an emergency landing in France, which didn't require any permit. So he declared that he was going to Svalbard, but then emergency landed in Paris. Fine, worked just fine. You know, the other day I was looking at all these permits that are required to go to Antarctica today. Antarctica is difficult. And then I saw this guy, he was coming from he decided to sail from Tasmania to Argentina. And then he had an emergency landing in Dorian Bay. Because he had to. Just fine. Working just fine. So it's that thinking that is kind of typically American, that it's much better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. That is a very interesting story like that with Burt Rutan, which is one of my heroes. If you think that Elon Musk is my superhero,
Burt Rutan is,
you didn't hear about Burt Rutan yet.
He's my dad's hero, yeah.
Yeah, Burt Rutan is my hero, and there was this Oshkosh, where a Japanese guy brought this airplane that had variable CG, and he was showing that it was a prototype and a new design and something like that. And Burt said, "Oh, this is really interesting," and that is an interview where he talks about this. And he said, "Oh, this is such an interesting concept. Why don't you show us?" He said, "Is this flyable?" I said, "Yeah, it flies." Said, "Okay, then fly him." "Oh, but I don't have a permit." "Who cares? Fly it. Just go." "Yeah, but the Japanese guy was really like freaking out about it." I said, "But it's against the rules, and I'll get a fine and all that." And then Burt did this. He said, there was a bunch of people around him. He said, "Hey, any of you, would you give $5 to help pay for his fine?" And people start giving $5, $5. And then one guy said, "Whatever is the balance, I'll cover." You can imagine, probably a Texan with the big hat and all that. "Whatever is the balance, I'll cover. Just do it." And he ended up not doing, because his aircraft required a lot of runway. And they couldn't do that on the taxiway. So the taxiway was too short for him to take off. So there was a technical reason to not do it. But legalities were not going to stop a guy like Burt Rutan that broke the rules so many times. And like there were so many cases in which like he didn't have, because he couldn't pass a medical after 70 or something, but then he would go and taxi in high speed, on the taxiway, and he would be flying. He said, "No, I'm taxing. If I don't leave ground effect, I am not flying yet." And the people from the FAA would be furious with him, but there was nothing they could do about it.
Elon Musk broke some rules with one of his launches.
No, many times.
He did not have clearance for one of his Dragon ship launches, and he launched anyway.
No, the Starship.
Yeah.
It was for Starship.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? The guy from the FAA was in traffic. He couldn't get it on time. And then they launched it anyway. But they were tracking the guy.
Yeah.
So they knew he was not going to arrive to the starbase on time. Wow. To say, and he was the one that was the officer in charge of that. And so they check, okay, his phone is not working. He's in traffic. Let's go. They do that. No, they broke the rules so many times. And I love it. I love that spirit of, you understand that the rules of regulation, you break any deal with that. The laws of physics, those you have to pay attention to. If you can break the laws of regulation, but you cannot break the laws of physics, and I think that is the limit. And same here. When I designed this boat, a lot of the design is driven by regulation. The boat is 15.5 feet. Why? Because at 16, I need to get it inspected to register. At 15.5, I can register online. I don't need to have any bureaucrat looking at it, asking questions. All right. At 16, also, the rules that applies to powerboats change. Below 16, all I need to have is the minimal. I need to have the PFDs and flare, a light, and I'm going to have the lights, and I need to have a whistle. Right? That's it. Below 16. It doesn't matter how wide it is, because the regulation says 15 in length. Right. It doesn't say anything about beam.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything. Also, because I'm not straddling, and it's not the main propulsion is not fossil fuel. It's not a PFD. It's not a personal watercraft.
Right.
So it's a powerboat. Doesn't matter that it has
wings.
That it has a propeller.
Oh.
The legal definition of an airboat, for example, says that it has to have an ICE engine on it. If it is electric, it's powerboat. So that means I can fly in the Everglades Park. They can't stop me.
Well, they probably
They cannot
will.
say no.
They will.
No, they will stop me, but then I'll show the registration. No, it's a powerboat.
Yeah.
They can do nothing about it. Yeah. They cannot say that I'm landing an airplane there, because it's not an airplane.
Yeah.
If someone calls the FAA, they'll say, how high was him? Oh, he was like 3 feet high. Not a problem.
Yeah.
So the FAA doesn't care. The Coast Guard doesn't care for the most part. They will inspect it, but they will apply the rules for powerboat up to 16. So I chose the size. Of course, it would be easier to build it bigger. But I chose the size because that size makes me go exactly around the rules as they are. And because I'm just one, you're not going to change the rules just for me. You know, it's just one. Unless I hit a little boat full of kids and kill all of them. Then they are going to write new constitution just for me.
Yeah.
But if I don't do anything absurd, nobody will care. That's why that size.
I'll be anxious to see it.
So you were now together in the Caribbean and Kansas City, going back and forth, right? And now we are in the 90s, getting into the 2000s.
Yep.
Right? Where else have you been?
Golly, we started in 98. We went to the World Interhash in Kuala Lumpur, which was the first time that I'd been. We went to Bangkok and to Taipei and to the Philippines, and we did a lot of East Asia. We did a lot of East Asia on the way there and afterwards. And
but never to Kiev.
No, we've not.
We have to meet in Kiev. Yeah. Okay, all right, that's a plan.
And we've been to almost every World Interhash since. I think the only one we missed was Goa, wasn't it? Yeah, so we've been, Indonesia and Australia multiple times, and we have good sailing friends in Australia. We've sailed a fair bit in Australia. Delivered a boat from New Caledonia to New Zealand. That was an interesting delivery.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know where New Caledonia was. I had to look it up on a map.
I have no idea where it is. I'll have to Google after this.
It's a French territory in in France, like even Guadeloupe and Saint Martin and they're all Martinique. They're all départements of France. They're actually French states. New Caledonia is as well, but it's in the South Pacific. It's north of New Zealand.
Okay.
So it's funny that in the South Pacific, their currency is the euro.
No, they use South Pacific francs. They use South Pacific francs.
South Pacific francs.
But
even though it's French territory. So
but that's one of the reasons that I want to have. Either I'll get I'm working on getting my European residency, because as I travel the world, then I can do banking and a lot of transactions as a European resident as well. Because otherwise, as only with the American passport, you can go so far. Yeah. But if you have American passport and European residency, the 90% of the world now is open to you for banking, for transactions, for insurance, for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working on that. So
where else we were in Kansas City then until 2003 when we went to Inter-America's Hash in Costa Rica, and right after that he had been corresponding with a guy in Key West who wanted the boat that we were taking out of charter service in St. Vincent. He wanted it for his fleet in Key West because he had the same kind of boat there and had bookings on it for charters. And the guy said, "No, I'm taking my boat and sailing off into the sunset." And so he needed that boat. So he brought the boat up to Key West to the charter company, and they eventually parted ways over some disagreements. But that's what landed him in Key West.
At the time, moving it up, because we had put it up for sale because everybody stopped going overseas and chartering the smaller boats. The boats over 50 foot, they continued to charter pretty good after 9/11. But after 9/11, the smaller charter boats, there was no real demand anymore. And so we put the boat up for sale, and that's what
that's when the guy saw that. Yeah.
The guy in Key West saw it. He had just bought a charter company, and the first thing that happened was one of the owners was taking his boat out of the charter fleet. And he had bookings all summer. And I thought, well, gee, that sounds good. I wonder if people are booking in Key West because they don't want to leave the U.S.
Right, exactly.
And not go down to the Caribbean, because Key West is like the Caribbean without leaving the U.S.
Exactly.
And I already had my ASA instructor certificate and my captain's license. So I thought, gee, if I can bring a boat up and put her in the charter fleet, we can make money with the boat, and I can make money as a captain, either captaining the boat or teaching sailing on that or a different boat.
And yours is like what, 100-ton captain license or what? Yeah. So that means you can use it professionally. You can use it to make money.
Yeah, you have to have a captain's license in order to carry passengers for money.
Exactly. And because the 6-pack is just for 6 people, up to 6 people. It's very limited.
Yeah.
Which is good for me, for my case, because I'm not planning to do charter. But if I was in our situation, yes, a captain license would be better. Regular captain license.
So, needless to say, it worked out. There was a lot of work. Our boat was chartered basically 3 out of 4 weeks a month.
Wow.
And I went out on more than half of the charters as captain or instructor.
Nice.
And then on several times where there were qualified people to charter the boat, I was a captain on another boat or an instructor on another boat, and that kept us busy, and we made a lot of money.
I have a question for you. Well, a couple questions about that. One is, when you have been to Europe, was there, because in Europe they have now this thing that they require something like a competence certificate or whatever, they want some European grade bureaucratic thing saying that you are competent to be a captain.
If you want to just charter for you and your friends?
No, for your own boat. But I also keep getting reports from my friends that go there. They say, nobody asks for anything. Like they have the rule that you need to have, if you want to get into the canals or if you want to go to check in, and they want to see a European captain license, or if you are a foreigner, they want to see a certificate of competence. That is the rule, and apparently they are not enforcing. And I'm wondering if they are enforcing.
Well, our only...
First of all, almost every country accepts U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain as sufficient to be able to
if you've got a
carry
six-pack,
passengers.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The English equivalent is yacht master. And if you have a yacht master, and I found that the training that the yacht master licensees go through is much more strict.
Is it?
Much more strict than U.S. Coast Guard captains. U.S. Coast Guard captains basically has no... you don't have to demonstrate any skills in moving or handling the boat. It's all exams, written exams.
And experience and hours on the water.
And hours on the log, right?
Yeah, that you log. And if you have your own boat...
Which, if you have your own boat, you log your own experience on your own boat.
Yeah.
And I've come across some people that I know never had the experience. They just put it on paper so they get their license. And some people I am absolutely convinced of that they didn't even take the exam. They paid somebody to take the exam for them.
Yeah.
So that they get their license.
Oh, no.
Now, there's also other fishing boat captains, even down in Key West, that are not licensed, but they'll hire a captain and make him work as a first mate or second mate on board. I'm the owner. What I say goes. You're the captain so that we can carry passengers for hire.
Yeah. So Europe is not... Apparently, it's not enforcing anything special. If you have your American license, you're good to go.
Yeah, and there's only been 1 or 2 times where I've been asked for my captain's license in Europe. And now, if you're involved in any kind of an accident, I imagine that's going to be one of the first questions they're going to ask.
Yeah.
You know, or
which brings me to the second question.
Damage to,
which is insurance. I hear a lot of talk about American insurance getting really difficult to get and really expensive. But
it's expensive.
if you have a boat that is flagged in U.S., so your boat is U.S. flagged, right?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. So did it change much? Are you still being able to get insurance as usual and not much difference?
Well, a U.S. flag boat can still get Lloyd's of London insurance. You don't have to stick with the nation that your boat is flagged under for the insurance you had. For many, many years, I had Russian insurance on my...
Tell me more!
On the boats in our charter fleet in Key West.
Really?
It was underwritten by Lloyd's of London, but I never checked to find out that it was in fact a Russian insurance company. Yeah, they wrote the policy, and
it's like when I go to Europe and I have a motorcycle there, and I ride with an European coverage license that is actually from Bulgaria, but they cover all over Europe. Yeah. Yeah, so, because when being a custom build and being a home build, the insurance it gets a lot more difficult. Yeah. That's why I kept the size at 65, because it's a few inches less than 20 meters. At 20 meters, the boat has to be certified. So that's what limited the size. And I believe that getting insurance is going to be a lot easier because certification is not a requirement. Or at least I hope so.
The American insurance always is higher. And so all your American insured companies and underwriters they're just more expensive. Now, after Hurricane Wilma, I paid the price for not having American insurance and having a Russian company underwritten by Lloyd's of London.
How did that happen?
It took forever for all the damages we had to the boats because 2 tugboats broke free in Safe Harbor during Hurricane Wilma, and they proceeded to go over and damage probably 30 or 40 boats in the harbor.
Fuck.
And
yours was one of them.
Ours was 6 of them.
So you had 6 boats
we had
damaged at the same time.
Yeah, during Hurricane Wilma.
Whoa.
And we had and the least was like $12,000. It was all between $12,000 and $25,000 worth of damage.
Each boat,
and all the insurance claims were denied. And it's like, I know why they denied them, because they don't have enough reserves to pay out, because the people that got their claims in early got paid, but now they're denying it, so we have to take the time to hire an attorney and go to court and file and then settle when we're about to finally have the hearings.
Were you able to cover the damage?
Well,
at least, or close to it?
What we did was I had enough saved to be able to do repairs on 2 of the boats. So we did the one with the least damage first, and then we tackled the biggest earner, the biggest charter revenue, second. Once we got those 2 boats operating, then we finally started getting charters on them, and the money we made with them, we started fixing the other boats. And we had 4 of the boats fixed before we saw $1 of insurance company money.
But at the end, did you get your insurance to actually cover the damage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it covered everybody's damage except I never knew the final line. I knew we had a 30-foot catamaran owned by a guy that lived up in Sarasota. And, of course, as the owner of the boat, it was his responsibility to make the claim. I made it as easy as I could for him. I filled out the claim forms. I did all the preliminary contact work and then sent him all the forms to file. And still, he sat on it, I don't know, for months before he filed. And then when he did file, his claim was so far down on the heap that they didn't even acknowledge receipt of the claim. And then, of course, he comes back to me, and what kind of insurance company did you recommend to me for this? And I said, well, you've been saving $800 a year for the last several years.
Right.
From the attorney that we hired, and you can you can come on board with our attorney, or you can hire your own. He tells me we have a very, very strong case, and they should pay. And he expects them to pay and probably to settle before we actually have our day in court. And that's what happened. The insurance company, after we filed, after we entered all the discovery documents, and we had surveyors survey the damage and survey the repairs for the ones that we did repairs. Then, all at once, the insurance company, months and months and months later, started offering settlements. And, at first, they wouldn't offer what it cost us. And then they finally decided, okay, we're going to have to start settling these. So they did settle. Now, because he filed his months after all the rest of ours, I don't know if he ever... if he ever did. They did offer him a settlement that he refused, I know. He took his boat out of charter service and brought it back up to Tampa, which, I don't blame him, but we did all the repairs before it left. So his boat was in excellent condition when it left Key West, and, we sent him the bill for it, and he still owed, and we kind of had a gentleman's agreement that when the insurance company settles, he's going to reimburse us. And he reimbursed us before the insurance company settled.
Wow.
So I assume that...
Nice gentleman.
Yeah, that at some point, and, he had... His catamaran was a pretty nice little catamaran. And for people that, wanted to send two couples out sailing for a week, we could charter that out relatively inexpensively and cover all his costs, and so he was making money. He was making money on the boat, and his costs, of course, were low. But
so recently, I met you guys recently, like 3 years ago, maybe 4.
At least that, yeah.
Probably.
It was right after you did your run.
And I have been, right after, definitely after, because I ran in 2011, 2014.
Okay.
So I probably met you guys right after that.
Yeah.
And I have been to your place like 3 or 4 times already. You guys are very generous and very hospitable, and sometimes I was there even when you were not.
Yeah,
so
that happens a lot.
It happens a lot, and I'm trying to do the same here and help people that are visiting and all that. So I met you guys through your practice of generosity. That was the way in, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm wondering now what it is that you guys are doing, what it is that you are excited about now. Are you sailing more or delivering more? Are you hosting and hashing? What else are you doing?
She's slowly receding from the sailing and delivery, boat delivery
part.
Part. She announced a couple of years ago she's not going to do monohulls anymore. And she announced that she's only going to do catamarans as long as it's not upwind. and
it's not, well, the last delivery we did was not fun at all, and it was for a real asshole of an owner. Well, the first part of it was okay, but anyway, that's not a pleasant story.
There was some fun times, and there was some good sailing.
But
under sail, we got that boat up over 15 knots, didn't we?
Yeah. But anyway, let's not go down that road.
Okay. I just got an inquiry the other day, 2 days ago, to move a Privilege 48 from Puerto Rico up to Florida. And as soon as I mentioned it to Lori, she goes, "You're going without me if you're going."
That is a nice trip, though. Actually, we did that on our boat from the Virgin Islands back. It was hell getting from here to the Virgin Islands because you're all upwind.
Yeah.
But the way back was a really nice sail.
Yeah. So it's not uncommon to take, if you're doing it leisurely, if you're not under the gun of a delivery on time, it's easy to take 3, 4, 5 weeks to get to the Virgin Islands from here because it's all up current and upwind. And but to get back, we got back in 5 days?
Oh no, more than that, because we spent 3 days just putzing around the Exumas, and we spent a couple days in Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, I mean actually sailing.
Yeah, but no, we've done one of the roughest, ugliest deliveries that we did was from Louisiana to Africa to Nigeria.
Oh no, we were in the doldrums almost the whole time.
But it was
even when the rudders broke.
Yeah, we had a few.
It was calm enough that we could walk on the deck all the way back to the stern of the ship and fix them.
Yeah, Anyway, I was pretty much perpetually seasick on that delivery. But it was, I mean, it was comfortable enough. But it was a big oil company boat. It wasn't a sailboat or anything.
Air conditioned.
Autopilot, push button sailing and everything.
But was it power or sail?
Power. It's a big. It was an 80-foot, great big diesel power. The engine room scared the living daylights out of me. It was like, it was.
That was an offshore supply vessel. That's what they used
terrifying.
to service the oil rigs in the Gulf. And there's a bunch of oil rigs off the coast of Africa, and so they need boats, but they can't afford them. They can't afford new ones.
And they don't build them over there anywhere, so they bought a used.
They use the ones from Louisiana.
Yeah. Okay. But now we've delivered a couple of dive boats that were built in Louisiana down to the Cayman Islands, and those have been pretty good, interesting deliveries. They're not particularly comfortable boats. They're made for diving, not for living on. There's nowhere really to sleep, and
there's no galley, there's no staterooms.
So, we delivered one in like December or January.
A boat with no galley? What do you have? Cold pizza?
Sandwiches.
What do you eat?
Yeah, sandwiches. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's in the
they're
cooler.
really fast, and so the first. From Louisiana, you just you stayed on the intercoastal, so we'd stop every night.
Yeah.
And so you
go eat on land, okay.
Yeah. But then from Key West to Cayman's, that's about 35 hours. And you're
camping on the boat, okay.
Yeah.
You're effectively camping.
If the weather's good, it's just Louisiana to Key West to Cayman.
Yeah.
In which case, it's down there in 72 hours.
Yeah, but none of them worked that way. But that was an interesting delivery. And then we did a really nice one from here in Fort Lauderdale to Santa Cruz, California. So all the way down, Key West to Panama Canal. Yeah, up the west coast. The west coast of Mexico is really long.
That's when you really appreciate how big a country Mexico is.
Mexico
the Mexican
is enormous,
Pacific coast is probably more than the U.S. West Coast and East Coast combined.
Yeah, it was a long trip. And then once you leave Baja, you're up current. You were talking about currents and everything.
Yeah.
Once you leave Cabo, it is up current all the way up to San Diego, basically. And that was
because
and it's cold.
The Humboldt current is cold. Yeah, it's a cold.
We were hotter than blazes in Acapulco, and we got to Cabo and then left. And going up Baja, I could not put on enough clothes. It was so cold. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. That was a long delivery. That was like 6 weeks, I think. Yeah.
So you guys are doing deliveries and charters and hashing and what else?
There's always something.
Mm-hmm.
And just vacations. We're going to Machu Picchu next week.
Machu Picchu.
With a bunch of hashers, it's going to be fun. We found out long ago, if you do anything and you see something really appealing, let's get a bunch of hashers to go do it together because it's much fun.
Everything's
it's much better. Yeah, it's much better. Yeah.
So we've got, I think, 13 hashers going on our trip, and Hazakashi is flying down on his own to be there at the same time as we're going to be there. So basically 14 of us. So a week from today, we're going to be running hashing with the Lima hash in Peru.
Jesus.
Yep.
That's so cool.
So sometimes we just do random trips like that. Actually, this is not random. We've been trying to do this trip for
it got postponed a couple times because coronavirus outbreaks.
Yeah, look, there are many hashers that I know, but I think that you two are the most recognized. Like when I talk to hashers, let's say in Texas or California, or I went to hash in New York sometime, people are, oh, you know music and yeah, I know that. Yeah. And then I go to California and I hash there and they say, oh, do you know these people and these people? I say, no, I don't. But you must know music and Thar blows. Yeah, I know that. You guys are freaking famous.
Well, we travel a lot. That's why we go to a lot of hash events.
We like going to a lot of hash events, and now that the internet has made it so easy to find and connect and register, and
And to book your travel and
it really is wonderful. So we try to go to all the Euro hashes. We try to go to all the Pan Asia hashes. We try. I think we're going to continue to try to go to all the Mekong Indochina hashes, and all the Inter-Americas hashes and all the inter-hashes.
Wow.
And next year is going to be the real litmus test, because so many of them have been delayed from last year or this year that they're all next year.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's like twice as many hash events next year
Right.
as there normally
and
is.
a lot of the lockdowns are over now,
Yeah.
and a lot of the countries are reopening, and
So we've
that
got
is so much going on now.
We were just over in Prague, Czechia for the
Right.
Euro hash.
Right.
A month and a half ago, and they opened up before Eurohash, and they closed back down after
But we had nothing to do with
Eurohash.
that.
It's all your fault.
No, everybody over there was pretty much vaccinated, and everybody tested before they had to fly back to. Well, it was. There were a lot of Americans there because the British couldn't go because they couldn't travel to Europe, and so there were a lot of Brits that couldn't go.
Some of the Brits
it was
managed to go by going to a third country.
You go to somewhere else first.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But so there were a lot of Americans there, and of course we all had to test before we came back to the States, and everybody tested negative except one, and he was completely asymptomatic. The only way he even knew he had it is because his test, and so he said, well, maybe it was false positive, I'll go get another test. Still positive. And so his wife flew back and left him over there until he tested negative and could come home.
Wives do that.
Yeah.
Wives
I left
do
him
that.
when he had coronavirus. He was working out in Albuquerque. I flew out to see him, and one of his contractors wound up in the hospital with it, and his son called Dennis and said,
my primary contractor, I've been working with him every day for 3 months. And all at once his son gave me a call when he didn't show up for work one morning and said, hey, my dad's in the hospital and he's not doing well. And they tested him and me, and we both tested positive for coronavirus, so you probably need to get tested too, because you were in close. And I'm going, of course, we're sharing tools, we're working hand in hand next to each other.
You're breathing on each other pretty much.
Yeah. So I went and tested, and it took about 2.5 weeks of testing time and time again before I did not get another positive. So I just kept testing positive and positive and positive and positive
for 2 weeks.
Yeah, for 2 weeks before I got my first negative, and then I called up the Vitalant, the blood donation center, and I said, "Hey, I had coronavirus. I just tested negative. I want to donate my antibodies." And they said, "Oh, we love people that have recovered from coronavirus that have antibodies, but you need to have 2 negative."
Two negatives in a row.
Okay. So I went up and tested again, positive. So I tested again, negative. Okay, so I'll test the second time, positive. And it's like,
you keep getting on and off.
Yeah.
So I think it was over 3 weeks before I finally got 2 negatives, and then I stopped testing.
Better stop.
But what's crazy is, this happened to be during a time when I was visiting him in Albuquerque. He was renovating this house, and I had been taking care of my dad, and so I flew out there, just took a little break to see him for just 4 or 5 days, and that was during the time when he got coronavirus, and so he tested positive, I tested negative. We've been sleeping together, I was still negative, so I was like, bye, honey. I flew back up to my dad's.
Remember
and
this?
I'm thinking, I'm hearing some terrible stories about people with coronavirus. I just tested positive. Don't leave me. You may need to take care of me.
You need to learn You need to learn 2 phrases in Latin. One says "malum vas non frangitur," which means a bad vase doesn't break. So if you're bad enough you don't get affected by anything. And the other phrase is quid Latinum dictum sit autum vigitor. Let me try it again. Quid Latinum dictum sit autum vigitor, which means whatever you say in Latin sounds profound.
Oh.
You guys are amazing. You're freaking funny. You're great friends. You're generous, and you're great hosts.
Well,
And
same could be said about you.
I'm very happy and grateful for that. And I want to say thank you so much for agreeing to be on this.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
I hope you find it entertaining.
It was really amazing, and I just wanted to say thank you.
And there's thousands more stories out there. So.
Oh, I know, and we cannot cover 1% of them in one podcast. So maybe we do another in another year or so. But thank you so much.
Thank you.